Hello, everybody. And it is with immense pleasure that I have a really, really special guest today. It's Elizabethapril, EA. She's doing the most amazing work. I've been especially inspired by your videos, your coaching sessions online, your immense knowledge from so many different areas. So I'm so excited. I always don't know where to start with you today, EA. I really don't. You've just got through your Saturn return. I believe you're just 30 years old. You're born with these amazing abilities, and you could see ghosts and beings and spirits from a very young age. And you've really developed those abilities. And it's such a joy to see somebody who's only at their first Saturn return, having developed their gifts to such a high level. So could you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little about you, please, from your mouth.
Yeah, for sure. So like you mentioned, I was born with extrasensory abilities. I feel like a lot of kids these days are being born with these abilities, even in the older generations, born with those abilities, but we just didn't have the parental or, the support that we needed to kind of explore those abilities. I did end up shutting down my abilities at the age of 10, only to fall into a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of questioning. So around 14, 15, 16 years old, the big questions: who are we? What are we doing here? What's the point of all of this? And I was really worried about the lifetime experience of going into the 9 to 5 and, doing post-secondary school and getting to a bunch of debt and like living that normal life. Like for me, that was the worst case scenario. And for such a long time, I felt like no one else was asking these questions. No one else was, in the same sort of mindset that I was in. And that was really worrisome because I'm like, there's only two options here. Either I'm absolutely crazy and the rest of the world is onto something, or the rest of the world is crazy and I'm actually onto something. And luckily, it turns out I was actually onto something, which was just the energetic vibrational nature of this reality. And then when I went away to university at 18, actually at 16, through a lot of questioning and depression, I went everywhere: counselors, psychologists. I went to even a priest to ask what the meaning of life was. And it was my dad who actually studied past life regression when he was in university. And he essentially asked me if I wanted to go through a past life regression. I definitely agreed. And that really was a huge opener for me of, oh my goodness, reincarnation is real and I'm not just 16. And also time is an illusion. So it just opened this huge can of worms for me. At 18, when I went away to university, I ended up taking my dad's past life regression notes and I wrote them into my own notebook. And I started to give past life regressions to kids in university just to make friends as kind of like a cool party trick. But then I started to realize that not everyone was able to be regressed. So I started to think to myself, what if I regress myself into a trance-like state and open up their Akashic records and tap into those lifetimes? And I started to do that. And I started to get all of the visuals, the experiences, the emotions, the lessons, the karma, the patterns in all of these past lifetimes. And I feel like I was in such a beautiful position to be able to observe all of those past lives, and to really take a look at the patterns of what it is and what it means to be a human. And then at 18, just a little while after 18, 19 years old, a little while after reopening all of my remote viewing, telepathy, astral traveling, all the channeling type of abilities, I ended up getting abducted by interdimensional beings. And that opened up my world again to, oh my goodness, now there's something so much more going on out there in the universe. And so I started to do past life regression for people off the planet, once again, by putting myself into a trance-like state and seeing where we ended up. And so now all of a sudden I'm going to different dimensions. I'm talking to different beings. I'm understanding what their job is, what their role is, what their struggles are in those different dimensions, on those different spaceships or what have you. And that's really when I met the Galactic Federation of Light for the first time. And they essentially gave me the synopsis or lowdown on everything that's taking place on planet Earth at this time. So that was in December 21st, 2011. So that was like right before we were all preparing for the world to end. And in a sense, I believe in 2012, there was an old reality that collapsed, which allowed us to enter into this kind of half old Earth state, half new Earth state, which we've been in since then. So yeah, and now I'm 30, so it's been about 10, 11-ish years since opening all of that stuff up, and it has been a journey to just kind of navigate all of these energies, especially as of late. And I believe that my mission here is to receive information as objectively as possible, and to try and relay that to humanity in a way that will help them raise their conscious vibration, unlock their etheric DNA, and essentially get as many people to the next level as possible.
Wow, thank you. I'm blown away by that. That's just, and I'm sure the viewers are like, some of them will be reeling by that story. Yes, I mean, you've kind of missed out the last 10, 11 years, really. You just said, and for the last 10, 11 years, but I think there's a lot in there. And I wonder if we could perhaps unpack a little more of that. You're here, I believe you said something to bring about the spiritual awakening upon this planet. More about quantum physics, more about cosmic disclosure. As I said, I don't know where to start. I do have a long list of questions. And I think I'm just going to trust the beings that are around us to guide us here today as to what's going to be most important, uppermost for you to express today. If you could tune into that, please.
Yeah. One of there's so much information, as you know, right? But one of the main things that has just been probably the most prominent piece of information that I've been receiving from many different sources, mostly the Galactic Federation, is that right now at this time, we are all being seriously pushed. Some people say, we're going through a training, right? And I feel like that at nighttime, we're going through training, in our day, we're going through training. But when we take a look at the kind of wider environment of the planet, we're going through this training. And the training that I believe we're going through is how to understand that we are the sole creators of the reality around us, right? And so a lot of people go to religion, well, it's God creating this reality. A lot of people go to, the governments are creating this reality. Some people go to, even the Galactic Federation. Oh, well, they're in charge of creating this reality. But it isn't until we take full ownership and responsibility around our own individual life. It's not your boss. It's not your mom. It's not your traumas. It's you. And the second that you take that responsibility, you can make a conscious choice to change your entire reality based on what you're focusing on. So the biggest, piece of information that's really coming through is how to really have full ownership in a non-ownership way around the reality that we have and how we're creating that reality. And once I believe we get to a place where we are living our own heaven on earth individually, we can then spread that vibration of heaven on earth to the rest of the planet. And one of the things that comes through with that message of, we are powerful beings and we are creating this individual reality is something that came to me in 2021. So I guess it was last year. And for the last 6 months of 2021, I kept getting this message that was so important for us to take with us into 2022 and beyond, which is something called vibrational navigation. And essentially what this is the ability to tune in to anything around you and then tune out of the things around you. And this is a really important training for all of the empaths out there that feel utterly overwhelmed and utterly distracted by the noise that's happening around us. Maybe it's our family members that are negative. Maybe it's the news that's projecting. Maybe it's our boss that's, skewing our behavior. But we need to learn how to connect and subsequently disconnect from the world and the people and the noise and the energy around us in order to have full energetic sovereignty. We will not be able to navigate the craziness that is happening and is about to continue to happen unless we hold that full energetic sovereignty. And once you have that energetic sovereignty, you have the clear conscious awareness to navigate through this life and create whatever you want to create, because you're no longer getting subliminally manipulated essentially by the world around us. And that's important for a lot of starseeds to know. And it's important for a lot of empaths to know that, if you feel extra anxious, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel really depressed, it might be your old stuff coming up, or it might be the world around you just getting to you. So we have to learn how to connect and disconnect. And that's the entanglement that we create around every object and every person and every energy we encounter.
So how do we do that practically, on a practical level? Can you give us some tips?
Yep, absolutely. So the one thing that I would recommend is be really aware of your reactions. Anything that makes you react in a very strong way, especially negative reactions, obviously we can be more aware of. Positive reactions aren't too much of an issue, but definitely the more negative reactions. What a negative reaction means, or really any reaction, means that we have an entanglement, an energetic entanglement with the thing. So if you negatively react to, say, watching a video online and you're like, whoa, that doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't resonate with your framework or what you believe as an identifier, right? So that just means that you have some sort of entanglement. Entanglement is not a negative or positive thing. For me anyway, I find it just suffocating. If we have all the entanglements, then we don't even know who we are anymore. And that's when we're lost, and that's when we start spiraling. So recognize the reaction in your life and understand at an objective level that you're probably just entangled with some sort of concept, some sort of object, or some sort of person in your life. And then what I would recommend, once you recognize where the entanglement is through your reaction, is work on doing the very opposite thing that you're trying to avoid. So for example, a lot of the youth these days, they're attached to their phone, right? So as a parent, if you have a teenager and you're like, okay, well, you're grounded and I'm taking away your phone, and that teenager has a reaction to the phone being taken away. Obviously, that's an entanglement that teenager has with their phone. So if you're this person where you rely on technology, or you have a fear around whatever it may be that you're attached to, that you have an entanglement with, then all it takes is to sit in meditation, quiet your mind, think about the worst, most extreme case to have happen that brings up the biggest emotional reaction for you, and just sit with it and just observe it. And what I find happens is that huge ripple effect of energy that we create through reaction and attachment and entanglement, it gets less and less and less, to the point where it's no longer there. And if your phone was lost or stolen or taken away from you, it's no longer a reaction in you, because you've dealt with the energy without having to go through the physical experience. And this actually leads us into an even greater concept that has been really been downloading through me, but it's hard for me to even conceptualize, but I just want to plant a seed. We are moving away from the third dimensional realm of how to deal with energies, and we're moving into a fifth dimensional or new earth realm of how to deal with energies. And by that, I mean, we're moving into a quantum state. So I read this is like a whole other thing. I just want to plant a seed though. So in the past, in order to release karma, Okay, so in a past life, you create karma, you know, maybe you break your leg or you end up killing someone or, you know, something traumatic happens. And then in this lifetime, typically in the old earth vibration, we had to utilize space and time to walk through our life to replay the same frequency of that karma from a past life in order to neutralize it. But what I've been downloading is we actually don't have to do that anymore. As long as we're aware of the reaction, as long as we're aware of the entanglement, we can sit in meditation. We can totally override space and time in a linear third dimension sense. And we can just clear all of our stuff by neutralizing it. And the easiest way to neutralize is to observe objectively, right? To get into that equanimous state where sensation does not create reaction. And by doing so, you put yourself into, once again, an energetic, sovereign place where you're not tied to any sort of concept, any sort of idea, any sort of identity, any sort of item, object, or person on this planet. You are fully free. And in that way, you free also the confines of the past lives as well, and the karma and the lessons. And I believe that that's truly the best place that we can be in, is just this neutral, objectively aware state.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness, you couldn't have explained better the movement into the age of Aquarius, because Aquarius is objective, is detached, is cool, does not respond with heat, you know, like the Leo energy is hot, you know, it's burns. You know, it has that reactiveness, or can do, depending on the vibrational frequency with which it's being expressed. But what we are to be moving towards, if we get to this Aquarian frequency, is this ability to be able to be objective. And I think that's what you're talking about, is it? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I do want to mention that, you know, I worked with for about, you know, we're talking about unpacking that 10 years, about 2 of those years, okay, I decided that my ego, my human, my emotional reactions were all of the things that were putting me into suffering. So I decided to get rid of my ego. I decided to get rid of the emotions, get rid of the human. For 2 years, I did this. And I decided that I wanted to be objective and aware and equanimous throughout that whole time. And I felt like that was happiness, that was freedom, that was happiness, that was purity on this planet. And of course, I lost all of my friendships. I disconnected from all of my family members, because what is a mother in the grand scheme of things, right? This is just an identifier that we hold in the moment, and on and on. I really let go of all of my emotions, my reactions, my inner child, you know, all of the things that excited me, because, hey, you know, that's just ego. That's just fueling the experience of the human. Only to realize that at the end of those 2 years that I actually wasn't happy at all. I was really suffering. I wasn't really, you know, what's the point of making food if we're just going to expel it? Like, there's so many things that just didn't make sense to me in that state that we're human. And there were so many aspects of the human reality that I wanted to resist in that state. And I realized that I created a lot of trauma inside myself because I pushed the whole human away. And then I realized that the best place we could be is, yes, having the objective awareness and the experience of the whole of this reality, and taking ourselves away from the individual identity. But then I also realized it's important to have the experience of the emotions as well, because one of the greatest gifts we have here as a human being is to experience the emotions and to feel everything and to utilize our 5 senses, which a lot of extraterrestrials don't have, or to do things like eat food and make food and have sex and smell essential oils. And there's a lot of aspects of this human that they don't get to have. And it took me 2 years to realize and appreciate the beauty in the emotions as well. So it's great to be objective, but it all wraps back into vibrational navigation. You've got your objective awareness of the whole, and you've got the experience of the individual as a human in this moment, and the emotions that come with that, and the expressions that come with that, and the feels and the connections and the experiences that come with that. And what's really incredible is when we become the true master of our reality, we get to connect with the emotion and the human in the moments that are appropriate. And we also get to connect with the whole picture in the moments that are appropriate, the objectiveness of you as a soul experiencing this body on this planet. And when you get to fully consciously navigate between both of these worlds, realms, and realities, the body and the consciousness, that I believe is that full mastery state. So I did want to kind of just put in a bit of a disclaimer that being objective is great, but it's supposed to be a balance. And what I find a lot of starseeds do, and I did this for a while as well, is we avoid the human state. And we just want to be out of body. We just want to float around because that feels better for us. And we're not actually here. And then you realize my relationships are suffering, my bank account's suffering, my interpersonal lives are suffering. I don't have a job because you're not grounded enough to experience and be here long enough. So it truly is that balance, best of both worlds.
Beautiful. Thank you. Again, you're enlightening the astrology here, bringing this in, because all signs have got opposites. We've got Aquarius, Leo are the opposites, and we must have both. Leo ruling the heart, Aquarius ruling the head, the air energy, and it's about finding a balance. And I think maybe what you were meaning is that there is a healthy entanglement and an unhealthy entanglement. Maybe.
Yes.
Is that true? Would you say that's true?
It's almost like entanglement wouldn't be the right word, because it's almost like how can we best experience this reality without getting attached to it? And I think it's the attachment, which is the entanglement, that humans really get stuck on. It's like, oh, I really love pink hair. And because I love pink hair, this is going to be my identity for the rest of my life because I love this thing in this moment. And with quantum physics, we have to realize that we're hopping in and out of an infinite number of different timelines from moment to moment. And by understanding that, you can reinvent yourself in every moment. And I always kind of bring the example of, you wake up in the morning, what are you going to pour yourself a cup of? Is it going to be tea? Are you a tea drinker? The second you say, I'm a tea drinker, you're entangling, you're identifying yourself with an action. And because of that identification with an action, now you're obligated, you're creating this obligation to drink tea every morning because that's who you are, because that's what you do. So I really try and push people to say, you're brand new right now. What do you feel like? Do you feel like a little bit of orange juice? Do you feel like some tea, maybe some coffee, maybe some fresh water? It's so important that we realize we have all the options in front of us, and to be able to experience and connect with all of the options and the experiences without the attachment, without the obligation, without the expectation. And that's the kicker for a lot of human beings.
Wow. Yes. You touched on something there and I'm intrigued. Could you mention a little bit more? You say we hop in and out of different timelines. Could you just enlighten us a little as to how you see that working?
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, the one of the best examples that I have with the timelines is a light, right? So it's dark, it's nighttime, you flip on a light in your house and you look at the light and you're saying, oh, well, that's just one light, that light is on. And by assuming that it's just one light, you would think that at the end of the month, your electricity bill is going to be really small. But as a matter of fact, it's not just one constant or consistent light. It's, millions of little electrodes flickering. But they're flickering so fast that we can't perceive the difference between one flicker and another. And that's what we get billed on at the end of the month, is all of the little electrodes flickering. right? It's not just one light. It's not just a solid light. It's many different little lights. And this is how I perceive timelines, is in this moment, I could do anything, and that action will ripple me into a new timeline. So back in the day, within those 10 years, I was really working on the concept of free will versus destiny. And I was such a rebel against destiny. I was like, no, I want my free will always. So screw you, spirit guides, for, giving me a destiny. Screw you, source, for giving me a soul destiny. I'm going to create my own destiny. So what I used to do, just to switch up my reality, to switch up the predestined timeline that I was on, is I would take a random thing on my desk, usually a pen, and I would throw the pen across the room just in the middle of the day. And I'd be like, ha, you see that? I just hopped into a new timeline. I just switched up my reality. And then I realized a couple of years later that it's us. We are the souls. We are the ones who create the destiny. We are the ones without an ego, without a body, who choose, this is who you're going to be. These are the lessons that you're going to experience. These are the things. We create our own destiny before we even hop into this body. So I was really just spiting myself, which is really funny to me, and now I respect the destiny. I respect being led just as much as leading. But that's kind of how I understand it, is every single moment we are hopping into new timelines. And if you wake up every day and every day is the exact same, just like pre-2020, everyone was living the same reality. And what I think is so exciting about everything that happened in 2020, I was probably the only one when things went down that was so excited. I'm like, yes, it's finally here. It's finally happening. The entire world is being affected and essentially being taken out of their stable reality. And, I found so many people convincing themselves that they were happy. They were happy in their 9-to-5 job. They were happy in their relationship. And to be honest, they were convincing themselves of that because they were simply obligated to their reality. And what happened in 2020 is they were taken away from their obligations. They were taken away from their typical stable reality. And it threw them into, I don't know what I'm doing today. I don't even know who I am anymore. And what's really exciting about being in this place of unknowns is, great, you get to be whoever you want. You get to step into whatever timeline you want. You get to create the reality that you've always wanted to create. It created space in our reality, which I am so grateful for. So that's what we need. We just need change. I always say that the number one, most tangible, the biggest tool for anyone to go from a 3rd dimension frequency into a 5th dimension frequency is the willingness to change. That's it. That's it. As long as you're willing to change, you're going to the next vibrational level, because you're always willing to drop what you think you know and move into a new space of awareness.
Thank you. Can I ask a question that maybe some of the viewers are asking? Why is there not much talk of a 4th dimension? And what is it? Mm-hmm. Why do we go from 3 to 5?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's not much talk of a 4th dimension because we're kind of like, this is how I view it. We're kind of skipping a grade, right? We're skipping over the 4th dimension, which is really unheard of. Like, very typically, we go from one dimension to another. Like when a civilization evolves out there in the universe, which has happened many times, we go from one frequency to the next frequency. And I would say the reason why we're skipping over the 4th dimension is because the 4th dimension has always kind of existed here on the planet, but almost existed in the shadows. So the 4th dimension is the 4th dimension in a quantum physics sense is the dimension of time, which means that time gets really freaking weird after the 4th dimension. It doesn't go away, it just gets weird. But in say like a metaphysical sense, the way that I believe, or perceive the 4th dimension is it's like a realm in between the physical and the non-physical. And this is where a lot of entities and like dark beings exist. A lot of reptilian beings exist in the fourth dimension frequency. But then a lot of elemental beings exist in the fourth dimension frequency. So they're still physical, but a lot of us can't see them or perceive them. And therefore we can't connect to them in that way, but they do exist. And so fourth dimension isn't good or bad, just like third dimension isn't good or bad. It's just a density, right? It's just it's an experience within this physical reality where space and time are more structured, more linear. Fourth dimension, space or time get a little bit weirder. And then fifth dimension, it gets really weird. So yeah, I think, it's not really talked about because we are just skipping over it. We're moving right into the fifth dimension. But we have been anchored in third dimension, fourth dimension for quite some time. And a lot of people haven't realized that there's this whole other realm going on. And at a 3D level, we could call it agendas and conspiracies, right? All the agendas, all the conspiracies, all the things, the shadow government stuff going on behind the scenes, that's considered the fourth dimension plane. Third dimension is kind of what we see on the news. Fifth dimension is like, what's going on beyond this physical reality as a whole, what's going on in the greater picture, which is the evolution that's taking place at a vibrational level.
Wow. Can you speak a little more about the Galactic Federation, how you met them, how you got in touch, and what are they and where are they? Can you give us a little more context, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I define the Galactic Federation as essentially like a government structure for the universe. What's really cool about them is they don't make up their own rules and regulations. They abide by the laws of the universe. So they're just basically instilling the laws of the universe, and any individual being or civilization that chooses to override these laws of the universe, this universe anyway, there are consequences, and it's the Galactic Federation that kind of lays out the consequences. So they're essentially like law and order of the universe in a less corrupt way than, say, our government systems here. And I do think that they're very needed, because I would say that they're only needed because we are in a binary universe, which means that there's light and dark. And because of that darkness, a lot of the low vibrational entities and beings in the universe, they want more power, they want more control, and they're greedy. They just want more. And because of that, they will override a lot of, say, the law of free will in order to get what they want. And that's when the Galactic Federation will step in. And typically they have councils and meetings and inquiries about, should we intervene? Should we not intervene? Is this our place? Is it not? There's never usually like one being in charge. It's usually a multitude of different councils. You can find the Galactic Federation and that kind of structure, and there's different names for it, all over the universe, especially in the solar system. So I usually always remote view up to a Galactic Federation mothership. There's a giant GFL mothership that hangs out just outside of planet Earth. It's in this solar system. And that's usually who I go to ask questions about the planet. How I got introduced to them, it was a couple of months after my initial abduction at 18. And the abduction was kind of just like a typical abduction. Like it was pretty honestly fear-based. And I needed to have that experience to open myself up to the truth of what's actually happening. And then a couple months after that, I was hanging out with a bunch of my friends in my student house. And I started to get really lightheaded, a little bit of vertigo, a little tired. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave this setting and I'm going to go walk into my room and I'm going to go meditate, because I always took that as a sign to meditate. And immediately when I sit on my bed and I close my eyes, there is this 7-foot tall, pure white light being that comes through the corner of my room. And it was funny because I wasn't used to getting contacted by these beings. So I opened my eyes and he was gone, closed my eyes, he was there, open, close. And I was like, like, what, who are you? And he said that he was a Pleiadian from the Galactic Federation, never heard of that before. And he said that there's going to be a meeting in 2 days' time, which was going to be the morning of December 21st, 2011, which I didn't know at the time was a huge portal or something energetically was going on. And he 2 a.m. time, which was my top time. And he said, make sure that you're awake. Whatever you do, make sure you're awake. And I'm like, okay. I wasn't sure if I was going to get abducted, like physically, if it was an astral thing, because I was doing that at that time. So at 1 a.m. on the 21st, I, woke up, set my alarm, chugged a huge cup of coffee. I was used to it at that time as a student. And sure enough, at 2 a.m. on the dot, he once again walks into the room in his astral body. And he said, follow me. And I knew what he meant. He meant astrally. So I followed him up and up and up, away and away. I'd only ever remote viewed or astral traveled this planet. I'd never gone off planet. So that was new for me. And we ended up going to the moon. And I thought we were having some sort of meeting on the moon. Turns out we went inside the moon. I had no idea the moon was hollow. And there's this huge meeting room with all of these different beings. Like I'd never seen such a variety of beings. There was probably hundreds of thousands of beings there. There was physical beings, and then there was probably tens of thousands of non-physical beings in their astral body. I could tell that they came from planet Earth because I could follow their grounding cord back to their body, back to Earth, just like mine. And it was this whole meeting from the Galactic Federation about just all these different concepts, how there's like a different species that's on planet Earth, and they've been manipulating things and manipulating the karmic energies and keeping us trapped on planet Earth, and that there's going to be this huge energy shift that we need to get prepared for, and we're supposed to like lead the people into this energy shift, and all the concepts. And that was my first introduction to the Galactic Federation, and that was once again back in 2011. And almost every month since that time, I've been remote viewing the Galactic Federation councils, asking questions, receiving information, and then relaying it to humanity in one way or another.
Yes, I've seen some of your amazing videos. You're really sharing some extremely powerful, valuable, wonderful information. So thank you. I didn't realize every month you're getting this information and then sharing it. Wow. Oh, okay. It just blows you for a moment. Let's let that energy settle. I can feel it going out there. It's great. It's great because I think what this does, what you do, I feel, opens people up to more possibility for themselves. Yeah, they're, am I weird? Am I this? Am I that? I think so many question some of the things that they may be experiencing, maybe tiny things, little things, and whether it's safe to go to pursue it or to look. And you were obviously very brave. You just said, right, I'm going, I'm okay, I'm ready for this. So, your inspiration there, I feel, makes the way for others to, open to those new and amazing possibilities that we would never have talked about even 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Yeah.
No way.
Absolutely. And it's really, it's clear that the planet is awakening, right? And ascending, and so many people are asking the right questions. And I just want to stress that, and I say this in a lot of my videos, that first of all, take or leave any of the information, right? If it resonates with you, it's for you. If not, it's not for you, and that's totally okay. But secondly, I always really like mentioning, especially when I give my background and my story and some of the abilities that I have, that I'm not unique. Like, I'm not special. I believe that we are all gifted. I believe that we are all hybrid beings. I believe that we all have the ability of, precognition, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, you name it, all of them. And I think each of us have our own kind of special niche, and we're here for a reason for that part of it. But it's really important to just state that I teach what I can do to others. And I believe that I'm not unique or special in any right. I really do believe that we can all gain access to this information, and we will all be our own channelers at one point or another.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. Of course, we each have a unique way of expressing what comes through.
Yes.
But I hear what you're saying. Whatever you decide you want to develop and you're drawn to, and it really pulls you like a magnet, chances are it's your direction. And just
exactly.
Allow yourself to be guided a little more than perhaps you might naturally go, because we've been so instilled with so much fear. How do we release this whole fear vibration that's gone out in the last couple of years, even stronger than ever? Is there anything you can somehow point to there that might help many of the viewers who are maybe struggling with some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like this was such an issue, the fear, and not just the fear in the world, but also the fear within. Like, what really rattled me is we have so many starseeds, so many galactic volunteers who are here to change things, and yet they're also getting roped into either the agenda conspiracy narratives or into the fear narratives. And that really worried me about a year ago to think that, oh no, this is a real issue. We've got these huge change makers. We've got powerful individuals who are perpetuating the agendas on the planet, who are feeding into the matrix by believing in this stuff, you know? So I actually created a course. It's like a mini course. It's called System Override. And it's about how to override any fears that you may have. Now, the course is specifically about the fears around the jab, or whatever you want to call it. But it's also about any fears that we have in life in general. Maybe it's a fear of death, or a fear of losing money, or a fear of being homeless, or whatever. And I guess the number one point, which we've kind of already touched upon from that course and from the tangibleness, is that a word, that we can apply to our fears, is to observe the worst case scenario, but observe it long enough so that it's no longer a really loud reaction in your mind. And I guarantee, if you do this, and you do this every time you have a fear, and you neutralize it just through simply objectively observing it, you're going to live a much healthier, a much higher vibrational life, just because you're not bogged down by all of the density of the fear. So once again, it's if you have some sort of crazy, weird fear of dropping something heavy on your foot, maybe that's from a past life, or maybe you have a fear of open water, once again, from a past life or something. Think about falling into that open water. Think about the worst case scenario. And when you think about the extreme reaction, you feel the extreme reaction in your body, in your vibration, and you observe that extreme reaction, and you observe it, and you observe it, the reaction, the intensity gets smaller and smaller and smaller, so that it's no longer a part of your lesson. It's no longer a part of your being anymore. So we have the full capability to completely neutralize any and all fears in our life. But what it takes is patience. It takes consistency, and it takes just the ability to let go of the distraction long enough to do the work. And I think that that's the problem. I think that we're all just so distracted. We're all so fed by the matrix. We're all so, entangled and enticed that we just don't take the time to do uncomfortable things like that. But once you do it once, you don't have to learn the lesson again. You never have to re-experience that energy in your life. And you're working with things at a quantum level.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And it's what you said earlier. The greatest willingness you need to go from third to fifth dimension is the willingness to change. And change invariably is peckishly uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Yes. And to regularly go and meditate. You know, I've never really been a meditator until fairly recently. Now it's like, I can't be without it. Because how else to be centered and grounded and detached from all that stuff?
Exactly.
I don't know how else to do it. So now it's a practice, but initially, awful. Yes. So always that initial shift can be extremely uncomfortable, and don't look for the comfort is what I often say. Don't look for comfort.
Yeah, I just did a whole podcast episode on seeking pleasure, and how it's okay to enjoy life and enjoy the pleasures of this life, like a comfortable bed, for example. but it can be extraordinarily detrimental to constantly seek pleasure. And I'm a little worried about the younger generations, because they were born with a freaking, computer in their hand. And it's like this instant gratification age where all we ever seek is sweets, is pleasure, is excitement, is all the good things. And that's why I think when we do spiral into depression and anxiety, we make it even worse by thinking, I don't want to be here. It's not good to be here, rather than what am I learning by being here, and making it a productive experience rather than resisting it. Because the more that we resist the human experience, the more human experience we need to have. Right. So it's, it's a very interesting age, and we do have to be okay with being uncomfortable and knowing that that's actually really healthy in order for us to grow.
Thank you for that. I mean, this is wonderful, especially for the young people, the young ones coming on board now, and for a lot of the old ones who've never really expressed themselves, who've never really kind of come out of the box, so to speak, whichever box you've identified with, probably many. So, wow, that's amazing. And so, of course, a question that comes up many, many times is people want to know their cosmic identity.
Yeah.
Where am I from? How important is that? And how does one get to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay. Importance. It's tough for me to identify the importance, because there's so many starseeds, especially the volunteers who came to planet Earth, who came from these other dimensions and these beautiful beings. It's almost like sometimes when I find that a person wants to know that cosmic identity so badly, it's a little bit of a displacement from their human. I don't like who I am. I don't know who I am. I feel completely lost. This doesn't feel like me. Therefore, I need something else. And that's never a good vibration to be in when you're looking for something that pure. And this is why a lot of people want it so bad, but don't actually have that connection, because the vibration at which they want it is a low vibration. It's an attachment. It's, I don't like this identity, so I'm looking for another identity to attach to, which can be really difficult. And I believe truly that we are multidimensional beings. You are not just one cosmic being. You're not just connected to one species out there in the universe. You've been many, just like many lifetimes. So I would say it's important to understand that most likely, especially if you're on this channel, and most of my community as well, are most likely, if you're here, you're a starseed, right? You are looking for information outside of the scope of this reality because you came from that scope, you didn't come from this. So it's important to understand that. But to make it a lifelong mission to understand your cosmic connections, I don't think is as important. I think what's really important is to realize that we are multifaceted, multidimensional beings, that we are connected to many different dimensions and species out there, and to be okay with that. And the second that you surrender and you're okay with the multidimensionality of yourself, but also the human aspect of yourself, is the second that information is going to come in. Now, I will say that disclosure for an individual, as far as their cosmic origins, it could come through a dream. It could come through a documentary that they watch. It could come through an article that just pops up on their page. So that kind of disclosure comes through any sort of direction anyway. And then it, just like you mentioned earlier, it's about the resonance. It's about the connection. It's about the, oh, wow, this lights me up, and not bringing any of that human doubt into it and saying, yeah, definitely a part of me is angelic or Pleiadian or Lyran or what have you. And understanding that those are pieces of you. And then continuing to move forward with your life, that it doesn't change your life so much, but what will change your life is the full acceptance of all aspects of yourself, including and especially the human, because a lot of starseeds have the utmost resistance to the human. And I get it. I was there for a number of years, is resisting every aspect of this because it was so difficult to just be here.
Yeah. Wow, thank you for putting that so beautifully. Can I ask you about, you talk about the human, are we also getting a human upgrade in terms of the body, the aliveness of the body, what the body needs to consume or not consume? Could you talk a little about that and how you see that, please?
Yes, for sure. So just like our energy is getting kind of up leveled, I believe our body is getting up leveled as well. I believe that like our cells are changing, especially with the Schumann resonance, especially with these cosmic energies that are hitting us and upgrading us, whether we want it or not, it's happening. And just like you mentioned, so two main areas that are going to really change. Well, I would say three main areas that we're going to really see change in our physical reality are, one is what we consume and what we eat. And it's the same thing. It's never to like put an identifier on your diet. That's like backstepping. Okay. It's for me anyway, I have an intuitive diet. I eat whatever my body tells me it needs. And it's always aligned with exactly the nutrients or the whatever it is. Or the grounding or the uplifting, right? We really just have to listen to our body rather than Wednesday is spaghetti night. It's like get away from, what you usually eat and start to kind of discover the world of food. So our eating habits are going to change. I would say even our body's sensitivities to certain foods are going to change, like allergens and things like that. And then the amount of food we eat is really going to change. We're going to need a lot less food. There should be a lot more, like even right now, there should be a lot of intermittent fasting, almost every day intermittent fast, which means I usually eat around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And then also like full day fast or juicing, I love how it's kind of getting a part of our society, even though it's kind of these like diet trends. I think fasting and juicing and just full day fasts are really, really important for our bodies to remetabolize, for our cells to heal. Our body cannot heal if we're constantly just feeding it with food. So that's important. Really just listening to your body, listening to what it needs, not ever following a dietitian. No dietitian, no person can tell you what you need. Like it's just impossible. So that's important. And then our sleep is going to change as well. What I believe is we're going to need a lot less sleep as our bodies upgrade. And even right now, the sleep that we do have is usually doing a lot of work in the astral realms. Like I call it the double shift. We're living our life during the day and we're doing all the work during the night, whether it be training, clearing past lives, or it's actually going into etheric battlegrounds and actually participating in some of what's going on out there. And then I think at an energetic level, our sensitivities are heightening. And this is the part that's really throwing people off. And I think worrying a lot of people is their anxiety levels are through the roof. And that it comes down to a lot of things. The main factors are, one, it's the world energy. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of change happening. So people, especially empaths, are picking up on the worldly collective vibration. But then the other thing too is when we start to open our 13 chakra system, moving into the crystalline system, so opening up the hand chakras, the ear chakras, and then 2 extra chakras above the crown chakra, we get really sensitive to everything, right? So if someone handed me a bottle of water and they're having a really bad day, maybe I go to a coffee shop and I grab a bottle of water and they're having a really bad day and they hand me the bottle of water and I drink the water. I'm like, now I'm having a bad day. And you don't realize that. You're just oversensitive to every aspect of this reality. It's going to throw you into anxiety because you're feeling into everything. So it's extraordinarily overwhelming. So as we upgrade, we have these extra sensitivities. Once again, without vibrational navigation, without being able to connect and subsequently disconnect from the world around us, we're going to be spiraling. And I do want to mention one more thing about disconnecting that I didn't mention before. The way that I disconnect from other people, energies, the world around me is because I'm a very visual person, it's usually through cutting cords. So I imagine myself entangled with you at the end of this interview, you know, or the phone or a glass of water or whatever. And I just cut my cords with everyone. So in coaching calls, even in live videos, I just always clear my energy after everything that I do, because there's entanglement. If I'm not entangling with someone, they're entangling with me. And I just clear my energy and cut the cords. And that's how I disconnect. And I started to really realize this when a couple of years ago, I was in a deep conversation with my wife, and I was like, ow, like my neck hurts. It was like the back left bottom crunchy. It just felt like it was just really painful. And she's like, oh, that's so weird, because like my neck hurts like that. And I'm like, oh, I'm just taking on your pain. And I realized I could just cut the cords with her in the moment and all of a sudden be liberated. And I didn't have any pain anymore. And she had that pain. I could talk her through and teach her through releasing the pain, but I didn't want to take it on. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't want to cut cords with my loved ones because I don't want to lose them. And you should actually especially be cutting cords with your loved ones, because that's who we entangle with the most. So cutting the cords, creating healthy boundaries, speaking healthy boundaries, all those things are really good. But knowing that we can create that balance and that disconnect at an energetic level without really even having to say or do anything.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's really important. That's an extremely valuable piece of information amongst many things you've shared, but truly that's really valuable, because as the day goes on, you get more entangled with different things, situations, things come up. I mean, for me, I just go in the shower many times a day because I find water is just like,
yes,
I need that, you know, Cancer rising. So I need that energy of just water helps. But you're right, the visualization of cutting the cords, I think there are different ways for different people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I love the way you do it on your coaching calls. You clear that energy.
Yep.
And I feel you clearing that energy. Like, wow, she's cleaned that up. Yeah, because you go through some very intense situations with people. And you're right in there, and then you have to clear the energy before you go on to the next person. And I think there's tremendous integrity in that. Yes, you're not muddying the waters.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So thank you for that. Oh gosh, I feel as though we've sort of just touched the tip of the iceberg today. Is there any sort of last thing that you'd like to share or point to? Because, you know, for me, I've got a list of things I wanted to speak to you about: inner earth, hollow earth, ET cover-ups, the sex agenda, the cosmic. I mean, it's like you cover CERN. Yeah, you cover an array of different subjects. And maybe we'll have another interaction, you know, let's see how things go. But just, is there anything you would like to address today that we haven't covered that you feel is important?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different topics that we could go into. I would say it's just like a general message of there are a lot of beings out there, especially the ones watching this right now, who just feel like things are getting worse. They're getting a lot worse. And I can agree, they're definitely getting worse, but I have to kind of put out the different perspective of things have to get worse before they get better. And one of the timelines, so I got 2 timelines from the Galactic Federation way back in the day. And one of the timelines was between 2016 and 2019 were supposed to be where all of the leaders and teachers of the new earth frequency are supposed to, or should have had, a huge energetic breakdown. So that's like a job loss, like huge foundational shift. You moved, you had a job loss, you changed your relationship, you changed your job, you did all these things to shift you into a higher vibration at that time, to get us prepared for what's happening in 2020 and to help those people in 2020. So I just wanted to kind of put out a bit of a timeline. I don't know how that aligns to astrology, but yeah, I think it was 2016 to 2018 or 2016 to 2019, huge monumental shifts for individuals to get us set to the right vibrational level to then help everyone else who was going to be changing their vibration. And then the second timeline that the GFL gave me, and they gave me this back in 2018, was, and I said this for years before 2020, I said, you guys, the timeline is 2020 to 2024 is supposed to be the absolute and utter collapse of the third dimension reality. 2020 to 2024. And then there's a huge significance in 2028. But I believe that we will not be able to fully start shifting, and it is a process to start shifting into the stability of the new Earth frequency until 2025. And then there is a significance of 2028. I forget what that was. I think they just mentioned it. I don't know if they were talking about like full cosmic disclosure or something really significant, maybe like the stability of the new Earth frequency happening in 2028. But with cosmic disclosure, I just want to plant a seed that a lot of people have asked me, when are they going to show themselves? When are they going to come down? And I have to keep reminding my community that the rest of the world is not like the way that we think. And if we can't even love our neighbors for having a different belief system or even skin color, then how can we freaking love beings from other dimensions who come down here who have far advanced technology than us? We have to be at a point where we're actually unconditionally loving not only one another, but every creature, every fly, every critter, every random flower that pops up. We got to just be on this place of equality before we bring them in. And so that's the timeline. So here we are, we're 2022. We're like literally just halfway through this huge collapse of the third dimension. So as much as I would love to say 2023 is going to get better, I do believe it's still got to get worse before it gets better. And we're clearing space for the solutions that we already have. So I do want to say that although it's gonna get worse, there are solutions. There's free energy solutions. There's pollution solutions. There's plastic solutions. We've got solutions, but they're not actually able to come up into the eye of humanity because the powers that be are still trying to suppress them and take control. So we are in this World War III battle for the next 2 years. And that being said, stop waiting for the planet to get to the new frequency before you feel like you can get there too. It's time for all of us to put ourselves first and say, I deserve to create heaven on earth for myself individually. And through that experience of living in that vibration, everyone around me will slowly change. And eventually the world will change along with it as well. But we've got to be the leaders here. Even if we're silent leaders, we have to start doing the work ourselves. And we have to stop waiting for the world to get there, because we're meant to get there first, to anchor in that frequency, to then help the rest of the planet get there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Just as an aside, it does fit in beautifully with the astrology. 2024-5. I did a video about that not very long ago, and a lot of people watched it because that is the turning point astrologically, when the planets go into fire and air signs. We're in this earth and water, sort of heaviness, and the physical things have to break. And then we go earth and, we go into those fire and air energies, which of course are more upward thrust. So, but we've got to prepare now and be able to speed up our vibrations, because it's going to go much faster at that point. Yeah. And we've got to get ready for that. So
absolutely. Yeah, very cool.
Thank you. Really, it's just such a pleasure being with you, talking with you. Really, just an absolute honor, Elizabeth April, EA. Your website is elizabethapril.com. I think, what's your YouTube called? Same name?
Yeah, Elizabeth April, same on Instagram. So definitely check out all that stuff.
Check out everything. You've got some very fascinating coaching sessions, as I've said. You've got some amazing, I think you do a monthly energetic sort of forecast of the frequencies and the things that are coming up. It's very popular. I highly recommend you check EA out. So Thank you very, very much. And,
thank you so much. It was such a pleasure connecting with you, and I'm sure we'll do this again.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.